Is cynicism a philosophy or a disease of the mind? This question takes us back to the cradle of Western civilization, ancient Greece, where the seeds of cynicism were first sown. Cynicism, as a philosophy, was born out of a radical rejection of societal norms and a disdain for materialistic desires. Let's delve into the principles of cynicism. Cynics held a deep skepticism towards conventional desires for wealth, power, health, and fame. They saw these pursuits as distractions, hindrances that pulled us away from living a virtuous and meaningful life. Instead, the cynics advocated for a simple life, one that was in harmony with nature and free from the superficial trappings of society. Now imagine the audacity of such thoughts in a world where wealth and power were seen as the pinnacle of achievement. It was a radical challenge, a daring deviation from the norm. Yet, it was a challenge that the most famous cynic philosopher, Diogenes, was more than willing to undertake. Diogenes, the epitome of cynic philosophy, lived a life that was as unconventional as his beliefs. He chose to live in a barrel instead of a house, preferring the simplicity of his makeshift shelter to the confines of societal norms. He carried a lamp in broad daylight, claiming to be in search of an honest man, symbolizing his quest for truth and virtue in a world clouded by deceit and superficiality. Diogenes' life and philosophy were a testament to the essence of cynicism. It wasn't about pessimism or disdain for humanity, as it's often misunderstood today. Rather, it was a call to question the status quo, to challenge the established norms, and to seek a life of virtue and authenticity, free from the shackles of societal expectations. In the ancient world, cynicism was a radical challenge to societal norms. It was a call to live a life of authenticity and virtue, a call that continues to echo down the corridors of time, challenging us to question, to seek, and to live authentically. Has cynicism become the default setting of our modern society? It's a question worth pondering, isn't it? The rise of cynicism in the modern world is a complex phenomenon. One can't help but notice its pervasiveness seeping into our everyday lives, coloring our thoughts, our actions, and our interactions with others. Consider social media, for instance. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, it keeps us connected, informed, and engaged. But on the flip side, it also exposes us to a barrage of information that can be overwhelming and at times disheartening. The endless stream of picture-perfect lives, political rants, and sensationalized news can breed cynicism, making us question the authenticity of everything we see. Then there's politics. As we've seen in recent years, political discourse has become increasingly polarized. The constant bickering, the lack of constructive dialogue, the us versus them mentality. It's all enough to make even the most optimistic among us cynical. And let's not forget consumer culture. We live in an era where we're constantly bombarded with advertisements telling us we're not good enough, not successful enough, not happy enough unless we buy this product or that service. It's a relentless assault on our self-esteem that can leave us jaded and cynical. But the impact of cynicism goes beyond just our worldview. It seeps into our interpersonal relationships as well. We start to question people's motives, second-guess their intentions, and view kindness with suspicion. Trust becomes a casualty, and that's a heavy price to pay. So, has cynicism become a part of our DNA? Perhaps, but it's worth remembering that cynicism, in its original form, was a philosophy of rebellion against the status quo. It was a call to question, to challenge, to strive for authenticity. Today, however, cynicism seems less like a tool for critical thinking and more like a defensive shield, a way to protect ourselves from the disappointments and uncertainties of life. Cynicism, once a philosophy of rebellion, has become an all-too-common response to the complexities of modern life. But does it have to be this way? Let's explore that in our next scene. How does William D. Desmond's philosophy challenge our understanding of cynicism? Let's delve into the mind of William D. Desmond, a renowned philosopher known for his thought-provoking insights on cynicism. Desmond observed cynicism not merely as a philosophy, but as a pervasive mindset, deeply ingrained in modern society. He saw cynicism as a pervasive, insidious force that can distort our worldview and make us lose sight of the inherent beauty in life. Desmond's critique of cynicism is profound yet straightforward. He He believed that cynicism, in its purest form, is a defensive mechanism, a protective shell we adopt to save ourselves from disappointment or disillusionment. It is the wall we build to shield ourselves from the harsh realities of the world, to avoid the pain of dashed hopes and unfulfilled dreams. But in doing so, Desmond argued, we also barricade ourselves away from the very things that can give our lives meaning and purpose. Cynicism, according to Desmond, encourages a worldview that's inherently negative and distrustful, one that focuses on the flaws and failures of humanity rather than its potential and promise. It breeds a culture of skepticism and suspicion, where hope is seen as naivety and optimism is dismissed as delusion. But Desmond didn't just critique cynicism, he called for a more hopeful worldview, one that embraces rather than shuns the complexities and contradictions of life. He championed the idea of metaxou, a Greek term meaning between, suggesting that we exist in a state of betweenness, suspended between the finite and the infinite, the flawed and the perfect, the cynical and the hopeful. Desmond's philosophy challenges us to resist the pull of cynicism, to see beyond the surface-level imperfections, and to strive for a deeper understanding of the world and our place in it. His philosophy urges us to not just accept the world as it is, but to dare to envision it as it could be. According to Desmond, cynicism is not a solution, but a symptom of a deeper societal issue. Is there an antidote to cynicism, or are we doomed to a world devoid of trust? This is the question that plagues many, but fear not, for philosopher William D. Desmond proposes tangible solutions that can help us combat this pervasive mindset. Firstly, Desmond encourages us to develop a sense of wonder. This doesn't mean simply gazing at the stars or marveling at nature, though those are certainly aspects of it. Rather, it is about rediscovering the ability to be astonished by the world around us, to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's about challenging the cynic's dismissal of everything as mundane or meaningless. For when we open ourselves up to wonder, we allow ourselves to see the world not as a place of deceit and disappointment, but as a place full of potential and mystery. Secondly, Desmond advocates for the practice of mindfulness. Rooted in Eastern philosophies, mindfulness compels us to be present in the moment, to truly engage with our surroundings without the fog of past regrets or future anxieties. It asks us to step away from the cynic's habit of incessantly questioning and doubting, and instead to simply be, to accept the world as it is without the need for constant scrutiny. Finally, Desmond proposes fostering genuine relationships as a counter to cynicism. Cynics often isolate themselves, believing that others are not to be trusted, but Desmond suggests that it is through authentic connections with others that we can find our faith in humanity restored. By engaging in meaningful conversations, showing empathy, and demonstrating care, we can begin to break down the walls of cynicism. In essence, Desmond's antidotes to cynicism are not complex philosophical theories, but simple practices that can be integrated into our daily lives. They require us to shift our perspective, to choose to see the world differently, to make an effort to connect with others, and most importantly, to believe in the possibility of goodness. By embracing a sense of wonder and cultivating meaningful relationships, we can begin to combat the cynicism that pervades our society. Is cynicism a choice or a response to the world around us? This question may sound like a philosophical conundrum, but the answer bears practical implications that can shape our lives. Consider the idea of choice. Choice is a powerful force that defines our identity, molds our perceptions, and ultimately influences our actions. It's our choices that dictate how we interact with the world and how we interpret its happenings. Even when faced with life's most challenging episodes, we have the choice to react with either cynicism or hope. Now, let's turn our attention to personal responsibility. It's easy to adopt cynicism, to surrender to the idea that the world is intrinsically flawed and there's nothing we can do about it. But personal responsibility urges us to challenge this narrative. It implores us to acknowledge that yes, the world has its issues, but we also have the capability to inspire change, to bring about a positive difference. This is where the philosophy of William D. Desmond comes into play. Desmond's philosophy encourages us to reject the cloak of cynicism and instead adopt a more hopeful outlook. His teachings remind us that cynicism is not a life sentence, but a perspective we can choose to abandon. He compels us to see the world not as a stage of ceaseless despair, but as a realm teeming with possibilities. In essence, Desmond's philosophy empowers us to take charge of our worldview, to consciously decide how we perceive our surroundings. It's an invitation to embrace optimism, to believe in the potential for good, to trust in the power of human resilience. Cynicism may be a common response to the world around us, but it's not the only one. The power to choose a different path lies within each of us. So, let's ponder this. What if, instead of defaulting to cynicism, we choose to see the world through a lens of potential and promise? What changes could we inspire then?